She asked you why you did it. You didn't have an answer, not a real one. You said something. Stress, bad timing, you weren't thinking, and she nodded, or maybe she didn't. It doesn't matter. You knew when the words came out that they were bullshit. The truth is, you saw it coming. You watched yourself burn it from about 3 steps out, and you did it anyway. Not blind, not in a blackout, not some heat of the moment thing you can chalk up to bad emotional regulation. You did it with full awareness, one move at a time, like a man who knows exactly where the exit is and decides to walk toward it anyway. You didn't lose that thing, you killed it. The relationship that was working, the deal that was closing, the version of your life that was finally genuinely starting to look like something, you waited until it had enough weight to hurt you, and then you put a bullet in it. Not because you're broken, not because you're self-destructive in some clinical sense that gets you off the hook, because something in you looked at how good it was getting and decided, yeah, that's far enough. Yeah, this isn't bad luck. This isn't patterns you can't see. This isn't some childhood wound you need to unpack in a room with a box full of tissues. You already know who did this. You did. That's why you typed the question. Not why do bad things happen to me? Why do I ruin good things? You included the indictment in your search. I'm not here to forgive you for it. I'm here to show you what it's protecting, because there is something it's protecting, something specific, something the good thing was about to threaten. And until you can see it clearly, you'll keep doing it. Clean, efficient, and on schedule. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what the mechanism is, what it's costing you that you haven't named yet, and the one thing that actually breaks it. If you click off this video, you'll do what you always do. You'll wait for the dust to settle, call it a lesson, quietly set the thing up to burn down again. And you'll be back here in 18 months with a slightly longer list and a slightly shorter fuse. Stick around. Here's what's actually running. When things are bad, grinding, struggling, you're behind, the program is calm. There is no threat. A man in a hard stretch doesn't threaten anything. Nobody's watching closely enough to evaluate. Nobody expects too much. But when things are good, when the relationship is solid, the work is moving, people are starting to count on the version of you that's been showing up, something in you fires. Not fear exactly, a low frequency alarm. A restlessness you can't quite name. A sudden, very convincing read that something's off. That timing isn't right, that you need to reassess. That maybe this thing has a problem you should address before it gets worse. That read feels like yours. It uses your vocabulary. It sounds like discernment. It isn't discernment. It's your hostile operator running a threat assessment. Now, your hostile operator isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. It's a bored, efficient saboteur that has been doing this job since before you could name it, scanning every good thing you build for the moment it gets threatening enough to dismantle. And when that moment arrives, it doesn't yell. It whispers in your voice with your specific fears dressed up as wisdom. I know the exact feeling, standing in something that was working, actually working, and feeling a pull toward the exit door that I dressed up as intelligence. I called it reading the situation clearly, called it protecting myself. The truth is, there was nothing to read. The situation was fine. What the hostile operator couldn't tolerate was that the situation was fine, and I was still there, becoming irrevocably the man it said I was. That's what triggered the exit, not a problem, a proof. Your hostile operator isn't afraid of failure. Failure confirms the story it's been running. It's afraid of success because success is evidence the story was wrong. So it manufactures a problem efficiently. Before you can register what's happening, you're already 3 moves into killing it. And every move feels completely reasonable. Here's what you need to understand. That feeling, the restlessness, the doubt, the urge to pull back is not your read on the situation. It is noise. It's generated by a system that was installed before you had any say in it, by every voice that ever needed you small and manageable and easy to predict. Your actual read happened earlier, from a place of innate wisdom, before the hostile operator convened its session with the committee. In the first clean moment when you knew the thing was good, That knowing was yours. That was your signal. Everything after it was cloud cover, weather. Your hostile operator is protecting a story, not consciously, not with language you'd recognize, but underneath all the sophisticated reasoning. There's an identity it's been maintaining for years. The man who almost made it. The man with untested potential. The man whose best work is always just ahead of him. That identity has one very specific utility. It cannot be evaluated. A man who hasn't fully committed can't be found wanting. A man who keeps the exit open is never truly in the room. He's always available to say, I wasn't really trying. And nobody, including himself, can prove otherwise. When something good arrives, when the thing is actually working, that story is at risk because now there's evidence. Now the question isn't what he could do, but what he is doing. And the hostile operator cannot allow that question to get answered. So it burns the evidence. I ran a version of myself for years that was capable, but blocked, smart, but circumstances, better than the results showed. And I thought I was waiting for the right conditions. What I was actually doing was maintaining a fiction that kept me insulated from my own output. Every time the condition got right, I got uncomfortable. Because if the conditions were right and I was still there, present, committed, in it, I'd have to stop being the man who was waiting for them. The almost man doesn't have to prove anything. The arrived man has to live there. That's terrifying in a way that failure never was. Here's the cost that nobody names. You stop being able to hear yourself clearly because the hostile operator is loud. It never stops. It has a reason for everything. And the longer you've acted on it, the more it sounds like you, your voice, your concerns, your legitimate intelligence applied to the problem of why this thing might not work. Underneath all of that noise, there's a knowing that was there before any of it started. It was there the moment the good thing arrived. It said, this is real. It said, stick around. That was your innate wisdom. It spoke first, clean, fast, no footnotes. The committee, well, it showed up afterwards with better vocabulary, and you followed the committee. You've been doing it so long that you've started to mistake the committee for the intelligence. And it isn't. The committee is just louder. Here's the body count, not the things you've lost. You've already counted those. The cost underneath that one. Every time you kill a good thing, your innate wisdom gets a little harder to hear. Not because it weakens, because you've trained yourself to override it so efficiently that the gap between the signal firing and the hostile operator has collapsed to almost nothing. The knowing arrives. The noise arrives 1 second later, and by now you move on the noise so fast that the knowing barely registers as having happened. That's the real damage, not the relationship, not the deal, the instrument. You've systematically been teaching yourself that the first clean read, the one that came before the committee, before the analysis, before the very convincing case for exit, it doesn't count. It isn't reliable. It needs more thought. It doesn't need more thought. More thought is the weapon used against it. There was a period where I realized I was keeping a gap in everything that mattered. I called it staying balanced, realistic, not getting ahead of myself. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to name it. I was keeping an exit open in every good thing so I could leave before I could prove I didn't deserve to stay. I wasn't protecting myself from the thing going wrong. I was protecting the hostile operator and its committee and their story from being disproven by doing the thing right. The gap isn't safety. The gap is a life lived in the doorway, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And the longer you live in the doorway, the less you can feel the difference between a room you chose and a room you're trapped in. The loop, it doesn't break by overpowering the hostile operator. You can't muscle your way out of noise. Fighting, well, that just generates more noise. That's what it wants. It keeps you in your head. It keeps you managing. It keeps you exhausted enough that the exit starts to look like relief. It breaks when you stop mistaking noise for signal or wisdom. That's it. That's the whole move. Not effort, not a new system, not a commitment you make with your jaw set and your fist clenched, hoping this time it holds. Recognition. The moment the exit impulse fires, the restlessness, the sudden doubt, the airtight case for why now is the wrong time, you learn to see it for what it is. Not your read on the situation, not wisdom. Your hostile operator running the same play it's run 100 times before. Noise dressed up as discernment. The committee pretending to be you and so mature. You already know the thing is good. You knew before the hostile operator started talking. That knowing didn't go anywhere. It never does. It's sitting underneath the session, untroubled, waiting for the room to get quiet enough that you can hear it again. And the first time I caught it in real time, the moment the exit impulse fired and I saw it as the hostile operator instead of my own intelligence, everything slowed down. The reasoning was still there, still dressed in legitimate concern, still fluent in my specific fears, but I could see the machinery. And underneath it, completely still, was the original wisdom of knowing. The thing I'd known before any of this started. I didn't have to decide anything new. I didn't have to force anything. I just stopped handing the hostile operator the keys. One question. That's the move. When the exit impulse arrives, ask this. Was this true before I started thinking about it? Is it true now, after 3 days of analysis? Was it true in the first clean moment before the hostile operator had a chance to build its case? Well, that's your signal. The noise came after. The noise is not the answer. Let it pass. You don't have to force yourself to stay in the good thing. You have to stop letting the hostile operator talk you out of something you already knew. The man who lives from this innate wisdom doesn't white-knuckle his way through exit impulse. He sees it for what it is, a system doing its job, and he doesn't give it authority it was never supposed to have. That's the difference between a man who keeps good things and a man who doesn't. Not discipline, not willpower, not trying harder. Clarity. If this is landing, if you can feel the difference between signal, your inner wisdom, and the noise, the committee, even if you haven't been able to hold that line yet, that's exactly the layer the Identity Excavation Kit goes after. This is not a framework for managing the hostile operator. Instead, a sequence that goes underneath it, that starts locating what was there before any of this was installed. The knowing before the committee, the signal before the noise, the man before the program got to him. The kit's free. The link's in the description below. If you want to do this work directly with me, I work with a small number of men one-on-one, 8 sessions. The link's also in the description. Here's what's true about you. You didn't ruin those things because you're broken. You ruined them because you'd been living inside the hostile operator's noise for so long that you stopped being able to tell the difference between a problem and a proof. The program said something was wrong, and it was so convincing, so thorough, so fluent in your own language that you believed it. But you knew, before it started talking, you knew the good thing was real. The knowing was clean, and it was yours, not installed, not manufactured, not produced by a system running threat assessments on your behalf. It was yours. That knowing didn't go anywhere. It never does. It's not something you build or earn or develop. It's what's already there when the noise finally gets quiet. Look, the hostile operator will run again. The next good thing that comes, same play, same convincing case for exiting. The question is whether you see it before you follow it, not through effort, through clarity. You already have what you need. You've always had it. The noise just got there first.